Trump's Gaza peace claim collides with one of the ceasefire's deadliest days. Trump says Hamas will disarm. Israel is still striking Gaza. Donald Trump called it a historic breakthrough, an agreement that would disarm Hamas, bring Israeli forces out of Gaza in phases, and finally turn last October's ceasefire into a lasting peace. Within days, Israeli strikes had killed at least 18 Palestinians in one of the deadliest days since that ceasefire began. That does not prove Trump's diplomatic push has failed. It does expose the gulf between announcing an agreement and persuading armed opponents to carry it out. While families are still being killed, military lines are moving, and neither side accepts the other's preferred order of events. The breakthrough Trump announced. Trump said his Board of Peace had secured a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza. He described it as a monumental step towards lasting peace and security, with Gaza eventually governed by a new Palestinian administration working alongside the U.S.-led body. The framework is intended to connect several moving parts: Hamas handing over its weapons, Israel withdrawing in stages, a civilian Palestinian administration assuming control, and an international force helping to maintain security. It also envisages greater humanitarian assistance and the beginning of Gaza's reconstruction. Trump, therefore, has more than a vague diplomatic promise to defend. His administration has constructed an international mechanism, secured mediator involvement from Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, and helped produce a 15-point implementation roadmap. The problem is that an implementation roadmap is not the same as an implemented peace. Hamas representatives have described the arrangement more cautiously than Trump, while Israel has raised fundamental objections to the proposed sequence. Deaths changed the political picture. Israeli strikes hit Gaza City, Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis, and areas near Jabalia on Sunday. Palestinian medics said at least 18 people were killed, including couples and children, in attacks on homes, an apartment, tents, and a vehicle. The Israeli military said its forces were targeting Hamas commanders and other military operatives. It said 2 commanders from Hamas's elite Nukba force were the targets of a strike in Deir al-Balah, while other incidents remained under review. Those competing accounts do not erase the political consequence. Trump had presented the disarmament announcement as evidence that the conflict was moving towards resolution. Yet Palestinians experienced one of the ceasefire period's deadliest days almost immediately afterwards. Nikolay Mladenov, the Board of Peace's lead envoy for Gaza, said the strikes had killed civilians and destroyed medical supplies. He said mediators were working to de-escalate the situation and create space for the plan to be implemented. The real dispute is about who moves first. Israel's position is that Hamas must disarm completely before Israeli troops make further withdrawals. Israeli officials also want the tunnel network, weapons production sites, and remaining military infrastructure destroyed rather than merely placed under another authority's control. Hamas insists that Israeli attacks must stop, and Israeli forces must withdraw before it will begin surrendering control of its weapons. The group rejects the language of unconditional disarmament, although it has indicated that weapons could be stored under the supervision of a U.S.-backed Palestinian administration. That creates a dangerous circular argument. Israel will not withdraw until Hamas disarms, while Hamas will not begin the process until Israel stops attacking and withdraws. Trust is deliberately not the foundation of the proposed arrangement. American officials have described it as conditions-based, meaning each stage would need to be verified before the next could proceed. Yet no verification system can function if the parties cannot agree on the first action. Israel's expanding control complicates the deal. When the October ceasefire began, Israeli forces retained control of approximately 53% of Gaza. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has since said that the area under Israeli control has expanded to between 60 and 70% as troops search for tunnels and other militant infrastructure. The expansion matters because the roadmap is supposed to move Gaza towards withdrawal, civilian government, and reconstruction. Instead, the physical territory available to Gaza's population appears to be shrinking, while the negotiating process remains stalled. Residents have reported markers associated with the Israeli-controlled yellow line moving closer to their homes. The United Nations Humanitarian Office also documented families being ordered from an area near the line in eastern Gaza City during July. Nearly all Gaza's population of more than 2 million people has already been displaced. many more than once. For civilians living in tents or damaged buildings, a debate over sequencing is not an abstract diplomatic problem. It determines whether another neighborhood could be evacuated or struck before the peace machinery begins moving. A ceasefire under severe strain. Gaza health authorities say at least 1,230 Palestinians, most of them civilians, have been killed in Israeli attacks since the October agreement. Hamas does not routinely publish a breakdown of its combatant deaths, making the precise civilian-to-fighter ratio difficult to verify independently. 4 Israeli soldiers have been killed during the same period, according to Israeli figures. The imbalance does not settle the competing legal or military claims, but it shows how far conditions have drifted from the ordinary meaning of a ceasefire. The October agreement did achieve major objectives, including hostage releases and the creation of a framework for Gaza's transition. Trump can reasonably claim that his intervention produced diplomatic movement which previously looked unreachable. Yet the latest strikes show that diplomatic architecture alone cannot protect a ceasefire. Unless Washington can compel both sides to accept the same sequence, Trump risks presiding over a peace process whose institutions advance while the violence does too. What happens next? The immediate test is whether the United States can secure a verified pause in Israeli attacks while establishing a credible first stage for weapons decommissioning. That may require simultaneous steps, rather than demanding that either side move entirely first. Limited Israeli withdrawals, monitored weapons storage, and independent verification progressing together. Trump's influence over Israel gives him leverage, but using it would mean moving beyond public declarations and forcing difficult concessions from a close ally. He must also convince Hamas that abandoning its weapons will not leave the group and Gaza's civilian population exposed to renewed military action. The Board of Peace now needs timetables, monitors, participating security forces, and consequences for obstruction. Without those elements, the roadmap remains a diplomatic intention, rather than an enforceable settlement. Trump may still turn the agreement into the breakthrough he promised. After one of the ceasefire's deadliest days, however, success can no longer be measured by announcements from Washington. It will be measured by whether the strikes stop. The military lines retreat, and Gaza's civilians finally experience the peace already being proclaimed.